So they say that comedy comes with tragedy. Like the very fundamental basic of it is tragedy. So when I was in the most lowest of the lowest, I started roasting some of the TikTokers in India and some of the Instagram reels and all these reels that were coming up. I started roasting these people by just being like, yo, what is this and what is that? And da, 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 da. I already had an audience, but those are all my musical fans.
Welcome to Recovery Inspired Hope. I am so excited. I have got a long time coming interview with the amazing musical artist Baba. Now, he has a new album that just dropped that is so fire, out of New Jersey, and so excited to finally be able to collaborate with you and get you on here. Say what's up to everybody in the community.
What's up, my people? What's up, my entire world? I consider my entire world as my audience, my people. And thank you for having me on the show, Jamie. I appreciate you. I appreciate your positivity. Your positivity is highly appreciated, right? I've been following your posts. I've been following your YouTube channel for quite a while, and you do help people share their experiences, their stories, and create a positive impact on the people who really need help and who really need that to be heard. So kudos to you. Kudos to the people, my worldwide global audience. Like I used to call Baba Log means my people in Hindi language. So kudos to everybody out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching my content.
I do. You're very welcome, Jamie.
So, first of all, let's tell everybody where they can find your music because your new album is amazing. You guys, your team did such a great job on the video and everything. So, where can we find you at?
So my main channel is Baba KSD. Those are my initials. My real name is Karan Singh Dillon. I'm, a Punjabi by background. So you can find it on YouTube. You can just simply go and type BABA space KSD. And my record label, I'm a CEO of that record label. So that's called KSD Records. Some of my music goes there, but my personal projects go in Baba KSD. My collaborations go there. And you can also find me on Spotify with the same name, on SoundCloud, on Reverb Nation, on iTunes, so even on Instagram Music. So everywhere around the internet, you can just type these initials, and you'll be able to find me wherever you want.
Awesome. I'll make sure I put all those links in there for sure. And so, okay, you have been making music since you were 13 years old.
Right, that's correct.
Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. You grew up in, you said New Jersey?
So New Jersey is where I live right now. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I went back to India when I was like 10 or 11 years old. That's when a musician called Bohemia the Punjabi rapper, who's based in California, he came into my ears, and he was very influential. Those were the early 2000s, and that's when I got inspired by him and started writing raps in Punjabi language in the back of my notebooks. And one day I was just murmuring that, and my teacher, she kicked me out of the class. And and then when she came out, I started to tear it off because we had a unit tests, means like our midterm kind of tests.
Mhm.
So I had to tear those pages out of my book. And then when I came back, everybody started, at high school, mid school, they treat you as a hero if you are a rebel kind of a story. So I came back and I started reciting what I wrote. So all the guys and girls who were like 11, 12, 13 years old, they started, pumping it all up. And I got my boost from there.
That's awesome. So you found a positive way to kind of work through things. Now, 11, 12, 13 years old, there's a lot of stuff going on in people's lives, especially when you get up into high school, right? So how did you kind of stay focused on your music despite the challenges of being in high school and social activities and steering clear of like getting into bad circumstances with drugs and things like that?
Right. So realistically, where I was and the school I was studying in, it was a very high-end school in the film city, Noida. So it was not really a school with the influence of a lot of drugs, because it was a very disciplined and a high end school. So I had this, so, because I belong to the Indian culture. In Indian culture, they give education a very high importance. So everybody in my family was at least a master's degree or a PhD degree holder. So my parents had this deal with me that, okay, if you get good grades, you can do whatever you want in your music, but you got to get good grades, and we don't need any complaints at school. Well, they used to have complaints at school because I used to go there and, do mischievous stuff, but that's all a teenager phase that we had to go through, right? When it comes to, and that's how I got to it, because I managed my time very effectively, right? I was able to manage my music as well as my, my passion for music. With my studies and education simultaneously, so that's how I made it. When it comes to the influence of drugs, predominantly in that part of the world, weed was the only highest drug that people were using. But the time I started, they were not even using that. They were using alcohol. So a lot of kids used to get, in their water bottles, they used to get vodka and alcohol. So, but that's the kind of influence I grew up with. And of course, I got into that at like 16 or 17 years of age. Before going on stages, I would need to drink, otherwise I couldn't perform, because the performance was so aggressive.
So you kind of used it to self-medicate for anxiety and things like that.
So I wouldn't necessarily say because at that time there was no such concept of anxiety, because I belonged to an upper class family, right? So we were wealthy, we were educated, so there were no struggles like rappers usually have. That would be a lie if I say that, because everything was there for me, right? But the only struggle was to get good grades, to be educated, highly educated. Even now I have a master's degree from Yale, so in finance, and I work as a corporate banking manager full time. So this is not just the thing that I do. I have a full time profession and my music career going side by side.
You
So
are
it's all
so busy.
got to be busy. I got to be busy. So there are many things that I try to manage, but I think as long as we have the control over our own time, I think that's what matters. Coming back to the point of addiction, yes, I fell into that trap. When I was, 16 years old, I fell into the trap of alcohol, and of course, later on, I fell in the trap of weed as well. Why? Because the rap that I was following, it was basically the West Coast gangster rap, influenced by Tupac Shakur, legendary Biggie, the East Coast rappers, Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg. So all these people, of course, it came as a part of the culture that, okay, smoking weed is cool, drinking is cool, smoking tobacco is cool, and promoting it is cool. But then we didn't get to know that we were falling in an endless pit, and that pit didn't really lead us anywhere. So after that, if you keep asking me, then I'll keep going on the points. But that's how the journey started into it, alcohol and weed.
Gotcha. And so you just continued to push through. I mean, that's so young to be starting a music career, right? At 16 and being college bound to Yale. I mean, that is some serious dedication. I mean, you have got to be so disciplined to
Right.
stay on track with those things. So
Right.
your parents did a great job.
I, you're right, but there was a twist. It's not that it happened that way, because I was not really like. Of course, it was a step at a time. So when I graduated my high school, I didn't really even have in dreams that I would be in Yale, because I went to Bombay. So Bombay is basically the Hollywood for Indians, right? The Bollywood industry is in Bombay. So that's where I went to learn music production, and I was like, leave everything up. My studies are done and dusted. No more bachelors, nothing for me. I'm going to be a musician, a rapper. That's all. I do not need to do anything else. But then, of course, parental pressure and stuff. I went to Delhi University, high university. So things started happening that way. And the same concept was there with my family, because, they're like, you study, you do good in your studies, you ace your grades, you get your degrees, and you do whatever on the side. Whatever time you get, you put up to music. So I was in a situation that I had no time absolutely to waste on anything. It was all going towards either accounts, finance, or production and direction on writing poetry. It was being utilized.
Yeah, and that does take a lot of discipline. I know because I do, I have my hands in a lot of different things. And you definitely have to choose, am I going to spend time on foolishness or am I going to spend time on grinding, right? And let me ask you, what advice would you give to younger kids? Because I love how we're talking about this, because there's so many young people who aspire to have these big dreams. What advice would you give to them to help them to stay on this track of being successful and being disciplined?
So they have to be in competition from today to their yesterday. They have to eliminate distractions. Because if they really have to, okay, so I'll give you a little example. If somebody really wants to buy a Lamborghini, they have to think that we're going to buy a private jet, then they're going to hit the roof. You have to aim to the stars to fall in the sky. You have to aim in the clouds to fall on the roof. That's my concept. So when I graduated from high school, people used to call me crazy, but there was a little helipad in our school. And I promised to my school people that, okay, if I ever come back to this high school, I will land in this helipad with my bouncers and, my gunman. People used to call me crazy, but something similar to that happened. So long story short, teenagers, youngsters, there will be so much distractions for you. So many people putting all these things in your head. So much of media putting, okay, you show this, you get that, you act cool, you look cool. There's so many things that are going to happen, but you got to know that sacrifices are the backbone of success. If you're not willing to sacrifice some major thing for your dream, then it's not going to happen. So sacrifice is the first step. For in order to get something, you have to give something. कुछ लेने के लिए कुछ देना पड़ता है. That's a Hindi proverb from ancient times.
Yes, that is very good advice and so true. So going into college, did you have any struggles in college that were challenging with maybe like friend groups or, different people coming in and out of your life?
Okay, so colleges I went to two. So I went for graduation. I went to Delhi University, which is the biggest university in India. There, I had this challenge that I was not taking my life seriously. Friends, I was already very famous then, very extremely famous. That I already had millions of hits, like 25, 30 million hits. So
Wow.
I was always high. I would, for 3 years of my graduate, like I studied, I was always under the influence of weed or alcohol. Always high, always doing shows, always, because I was not focusing on studies. But what that did is put me 1 year before, because there's a thing called supply. That means if you fail, you have to give it the next year. So after the 3 years, I had to wait an additional 1 year to complete all my backlog. So that's the price I had to pay. But yeah, the challenges, I wouldn't really say that about the friend circle or not, because all my college was my friend. Everybody wanted to be friends with me because they saw me as cool on a red motorcycle and making it happen. But my sacrifice was that I never was able to date or have real friendships. I didn't go no girlfriends, nothing, because that would be something that would be kind of a distraction for me, and it would take my time and attention. So no dating, nothing for me. That was my sacrifice. That's how I was able to make what I could make.
So, how were you able to deal with the loneliness of that? Because that can get lonely, not being able to make real connections with friends. And yes, dating is always a super distraction, but needing the connection of friends. How did you make it through that?
So connection of friends, I would say that friends were there. I was surrounded by thousands of people. But like Michael Jackson says in one of his movies, that he has the entire world to himself, but when he comes into his mansion, he has nobody. He's a lonely man. That's what happens to most of the industry. And I wasn't even a part of actual industry then. I was with Sony Music, of course, in India. With I was doing shows back and forth here and there. But real friendship, real love wasn't there. People was coming in and out like traffic, like somebody coming in, somebody coming out. Things were happening, flow was happening, but there was no real person. And until today, I cannot have any real person that I can call a friend, because with time, masks were unveiled, curtains were unveiled from the faces, and now there's no such thing as friendship. I'm my own friend.
And have been seeing that so much, even in my own life and things that have been coming, and it's crazy how that happens. It's like they always tell us, people are in your life for a season or a reason, a lesson.
Right,
Or a blessing,
right,
but generally, it's just you. And
right.
that but learning that and being able to accept that is really half the battle right there.
Right, right. I mean, I think it's just a journey. It's like we are nature. Like the journey of a river starts from the peak of the mountain, and then it flows, and then it becomes calm, and then it stops, and then it meets the ocean and becomes one with the ocean. That's the life cycle of a human being. Or you see the rain cycle. I know I'm talking a lot of similes and metaphors, like a poet, but that's how it is. You have to feel the pain when you were little, right? We had our parents teaching us how to ride a bicycle, and after a certain point they had to leave us. They had to leave us for us to learn, for us to fall on our own, for us to learn. Similarly, the birds do. The birds have to push their little birdies out so that they can fly, and they sometimes fall, but they have to learn on their own flight. The mother and the father birds are not going to hold their hands. So this is how life works for me. That's how I learned everything.
After you graduated college, so that's still like early 20s. Um, so you got a job working in finance, which is
So so
awesome.
that was, yeah. So I did work in finance part time, then with CA companies. CA are the chartered accounting companies. But then I just got a chance because I was from America always, right? So I did get a chance to come back to America again in Connecticut. So that's when I got my admission in the Yale University, like University of New Haven. That's the College of Business for Yale. They separated in 1920. So that's where I studied my master's degree in finance, which was a challenge. So those 2 years were the years that turned my life 360-degree. Those were the years I was infested with alcohol and weed. I was in an actual relationship for the first time in my life. I was beaten by, and so those are the 2 years that made me who I am today and made me learn the most important and valuable lessons when I was studying and doing my master's in Connecticut.
Wow. So that was very different from, the way that you had lived. It's like your whole life kind of shifted. And yeah, so your first relationship and you're getting your master's degree, like that's super stressful. I think both of those happened at the same time. And did it end the relationship?
Right. So here's the thing. So I had relationships in the past, but those were not really serious. Those were just like, here and there. But when I truly started living with somebody, right, I really didn't know how the world was. I was sheltered in my parents' house. I got what I needed. I was like a prince, jewelry, clothes, whatever I needed, I got. I was famous. I was living a life of the dreams for the first, I would say, 21 years of my life. I had no complaints. So my life was like smooth. Of course, I had to study and everything, but it was smooth. But when I really went there and I met a person and I started living with her, then I found out, okay, this is how it really works in the world. This is how you have to take care of somebody. This is how fights happen. This is how arguments happen. So that's when the turning point came in my life. And that person was, actually addicted to weed, all like full time. So they needed weed to wake up and they needed weed to sleep. So because of that company, I kind of got inclined towards that kind of a lifestyle. But the good part is that I didn't let the addiction of weed deteriorate me. I used that for my education. So I turned all the high that I got towards learning and towards learning words, towards my calculations, my finances. So I made that negativity turn into positivity. So I learned that transformational spirits.
Yes, so true. That's so true. So,
Right.
and then after you graduated, then what happened?
Then before I graduated, I got my internship with an insurance company. So, and to be very honest with you, I became a door-to-door like door-to-door insurance salesman. So that was my hustle. So I'm proud of my hustle. I'm not going to keep any cap on it, right? I became a door-to-door salesman. I went door-to-door. I did what I had to do, and then my parents are like, okay, now officially after your graduation, 31st December 2019, you are going to be a man, and we are not going to even give you $1 cut. So you are not, because before that, my dad was like, I'll pay for your rent, I'll pay for your food, electricity, whatever you want to buy. But after that date, nothing. You were on your own. You will pay your rent, your bills, and that's when life hit me. Of course, I started doing a job in New York City. I got a job before before even I graduated. But there was a lot of tragedy going on, which is hidden here. You have to understand. The tragedy was that I was I don't know if I should say that. I was physically being abused by the person who I actually fell in love for the first time. And because of that, I broke my back almost. It was subluxated. So it was tilted, my back, my spine. So I had to go from Connecticut to New York, which is 3 hours one way. just to give interviews back to back, 5 days a week, 4 days a week. So that was the hustle. But I managed to get a job in Jamboree in New York City, Time Wall Street area, um, and that's when the journey started to finance.
Wow. So you suffered from being in a domestically violent relationship. That is,
That's correct.
yes. And as far as your, selling door-to-door insurance, I used to sell Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door, door to door. So I
Okay.
I get it. I get it. But yeah, so how was that being in, coming out of that relationship? I mean, it messes with your mind so much. I've been
Yeah.
in domestic violence relationships myself. So you always think like the person's going to change and what did I do? What can I do different? And it is such a mess with your mind, like where you could say, like you have to say like, I love myself more than to allow this to continue to happen to me.
Right, right. So that's the first time I learned that, loving yourself, like you said, very, very well, is very important because I was actually being a man for the first time in my life, locking my doors and crying. People look up to me as not just a rapper or a finance guru. They look up to me for as a spiritual guru. So I basically am, in I'm controlling the positivity and influencing the minds of massive millions of people all around the globe, all around the globe. And a person like me is locking the doors and crying and asking for God for help. So at that time, I don't know if that's outlandish or not. My parents gave me some kind of mantras, some ancient Sanskrit mantras, in the praise of God, in the praise of Lord, which I had to do like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour every morning, after taking a shower. There were certain rituals that did help. But later on, I found out that the person I was with had four, like ADHD, schizophrenia, like 4 or 5 different, mental disorders, which I respect. But that disorders were to the point that the person used to like beat me and say, "Are you not seeing that spirit right there? There is a spirit." And they used to like throw things at me, and at that time I didn't have a job. My musical career was down. I was alone. I was skinny. I was not able to cook, and I was just in the border of just nothing. I could see nothingness. So that's what made me who I am today. And there was an instance where on July 4th, the July 4 Independence Day, uh, my ex girlfriend crashed my car into a tree in Naugatuck State Park, Connecticut, totaling the car with her mom in it, with me in it, and a little puppy in it. And after that, I'm like, that's it. That is it for you and me. That is it. Now I respect myself. And then's when things turn 360 degrees for me.
Wow. Well, I'm grateful that you finally put yourself first and
Right.
realized, that that this was an unhealthy, toxic situation for you to be in. Um, so getting out of that, and then so what did you do? You had to move from Connecticut?
So I had to tell everything to my parents, and I need their help, right? So my sister, my parents, both of them, like all three of them, came and moved me out from Connecticut to New Jersey. So that's where I started renting an apartment with roommates, and I started hustling. So thankfully, that relationship was over. I was on my own for a good 2 years, 2 3 years, and I was doing my thing, focusing on the things that were happening. But that was a big learning lesson for me to not just give your mind, heart, soul, emotions, attention, affection to the wrong person, because they're just going to use it against you and destroy you. They give a wound that you can never forget until the last breath. And as of today, when I think about it, I have goosebumps, all over my body. Yeah.
Yeah, you suffered serious trauma from it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being brave enough to speak out about that, because I know some men would not want to share something like that. So that is something that people need to hear, that domestic violence goes both ways.
It does. It does.
So then you were able to, go back to your parents, get help, and things started changing for the best, right? That's when everything kind of started to kick off. So I didn't realize that your music career has already been kicked off. So
Right. Right.
I'm just seeing it apparently.
Right.
I'm the late one here catching on that your
Yeah.
that your music career has already been on fire. Um, so what are you doing now? In what is life like for you now? What is Baba's life?
Baba's life now is like it's it's very timed because I am nowhere. I was so okay. So then I'll fast forward it. COVID happened, and there were ups and downs. I was fired from a couple of jobs. It was not easy then. Also, the hustle continued. Before I found a nice banking job in Jersey Shore next to the beach. So that's when things started becoming nice and cool, right? Worked there for an year, moved on, moved up, and now I'm at a point that I'm basically a manager in the corporate banking. So I deal with the JP Morgans, S&P Globals, Victoria's Secrets, John Deere's, like the multi-billion-dollar corporations. We give loans to them and all that stuff. So a basic day is like waking up at, I would say, 5:30 in the morning, working like a boss all day, coming back at like 7:30 or 8:30 in the night, and then just taking a shower, going to the gym, making some beats, and whatever time I get on Saturdays and Sundays, either doing special appearances, performances, video shoots, shows, or spiritual guru preachings. So just very tight on schedule. So for me, luxury is 7 hours of sleep at this time.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah, and it I can relate to that so much. I can relate to that. Um, so and I tell me a little bit about your spiritual preaching that you do.
So my spiritual preaching basically started in Connecticut when I was actually very, very broken. So they say that comedy comes with tragedy. Like the very fundamental basic of it is tragedy. So when I was in the most lowest of the lowest, I started roasting some of the TikTokers in India and some of the Instagram reels and all these reels that were coming up. I started roasting these people by just being like, yo, what is this and what is that? And da, 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 da. I already had an audience, but those are all my musical fans. That I didn't even know that that's going to blow me up to that extent that people who are my followers don't even know about my music, but they love me and they're like, love you, Bawa, this and the men, women, everybody, old, young, everybody. They're just sending me hearts and love you, Baba, and I want to follow you, randomly following me because of me being real. And then from there, from the roasting, I started talking about the reality, like talking about what my eyes see, what I hear from the gurus of the gurus, like Bhagwan Rajneesh, Maskinji, like the greatest of the gurus. Um, so I listened to a lot of influential men and women, may it be finance, may it be politics, may it be spiritual preachings. And that's what I impart on them because a lot of people in the Western world need to know a lot about spirituality because the spirituality that we have here in the West is pretty, I would say, like washed. It's pretty modern and it's pretty just not the right way. It's not raw. It's processed.
Mm.
So I need my people in the West to know that, okay, this is what it is. Whatever questions you have, I have the answer to it now by reading a book, by just looking through my eyes and living this life of a 45-year-old man being 28.
Yes,
Yeah.
wisdom, having wisdom. That's
Yeah.
so cool that you have so many facets and that you care about people enough to,
Right.
to impart that stuff because a lot of people just keep their mouth shut and keep it to themselves, right? And that's not what we're here for. We're here to give, to learn things and then help others by the things that we learn. So thank you so much for doing that, for doing your part in that. Um, so is there anything else that you would like to share with us about your journey, or any advice you'd like to give people who might be following you, who might be struggling, trying to overcome some challenges?
Yeah, I have some things I want to say. First thing I want to say is opinions don't matter. Opinions don't matter of anybody but yourself. When you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, you got to know that, okay, this is what I want to do. And there's one particular instance from Elon Musk. I do follow influential men and women. So one instance that he said is that whatever goals you have for the next 10 years, write them down for a time frame of the next 1 year. And he can guarantee, and I've seen it myself, is that goals you'll be able to accomplish them at least 2 to 3 years. So you'll be faster than that 10-year time frame. And I would say this to my fans, to your fans, to the people watching us and listening to us, that always have your day planned in the morning when you wake up. Morning is a very important time. First, you should wake up before the sun. Second, make sure that you know what you got to do. And if you're not able to achieve it, it's no disappointment. At least you have a flashlight. At least you have a milestone in your hand. So that's pretty much in a nutshell, I want to say.
Awesome. That is super, super advice. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and for sharing.
Right.
Definitely put the links in where everybody can find your music. Are you planning on coming to Georgia at all to perform? That's where I'm at in Atlanta.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I am planning to get signed pretty soon. If not, then I'll probably start to get signed with the event company, and I'll travel all over America and Canada. Just fingers crossed, and let things happen at the right time. I personally feel that if some good thing is happening, we shouldn't say it. We should just plan, act, and do it. So
All
if I'll
right.
come, I'll definitely text you. I'll let people know. But that's gonna happen.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for everybody watching Recovery Inspired Hope. Make sure you subscribe to Jamie Tall on YouTube, and we will see you next time.